Welcome back to another episode of Messing Around with a TR6 Restomod. Hope you stick around for this. So before we jump in, as you know, I don't have any sponsors except for me. So I make these little units. They're called Hornetic, and it allows you to hook up a second horn to your car. And if you tap your horn, it's your regular horn. If you hold it for more than half a second, it'll fire both horns for you. So put in an air horn, put in a train horn, and don't be a jerk every time you touch your horn, just when you're done asking. So yeah, help out the channel by hopping on over and buying one of these things. I really appreciate it. That's it. So last episode, we took the remainder of the shock towers and front frame from the BMW and the subframe with all the suspension out from under the motor. And we then mounted the subframe up to the new frame that I've custom built for this car. And this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the steering column and where that's going to sit, as well as see if we can't get some of this cut away so that we get closer to grafting the front shock towers from the BMW into the TR6. So let's get started on that and see where we go. It might be a long episode, it might be a shorter episode, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure where I'm going. We're just going to try and eventually get there. Now, as it works out, I have the main cross-member bar here from the BMW, and the dashboard mounts mostly to this. This mounts to the body, and the steering column mounts to this. So in order to move forward, I'm going to move the dash out of the way. I'm going to take a look and get this into place and cut to size, because it's definitely too wide to fit in right now, but I want to see how far forward it needs to be so that we can position the steering column correctly. So let's play with that a little bit and see where it gets us. Right, so I chopped this up and got it into place, and that's so this little piece here screws to right there on the dashboard, and that'll dictate how far this has to be forward in order to hit my line here. Now I know that these pieces need to be parallel to the ground plane, and this needs to be 90 degrees to the ground plane. So as far as anything goes, this is now in roughly the right place for the steering column to go through the old steering column, which puts my steering wheel where it should be. Now, what that does though is it shifts this that way a fair bit. So what I'll probably end up having to do is, as much as I wanted to use as much of this dashboard as possible, the likelihood is that I'm going to be able to use this shield. I'm going to be able to use, would like to use this section here. There's no way I'm going to fit the glove box in, but this and this need to be coming together, which means I kind of have to shrink this by a fair bit, maybe to the point where it's just not going to work, and I may have to offset the heater unit and the stereo, etc., towards the passenger, where the passenger is going to lose a little bit of leg room, but it shouldn't be too bad, as it's going to be all above the tunnel. The tunnel is going to go where the tunnel's going to go, and there's nothing about that that's going to change. It's going to be in the middle of the car. So they make it pretty easy here. There's 4 screws. There's another one over there that hold this in place. Like I said, I'd really like to use that because it gives me the connecting points for all the underbody, like the shin stuff, which really helps to finish off the dashboard, as well as the side pieces here. So I'd really like to try and keep as much of this in place as I possibly can, but it'll be what it's going to be. So I think right now what I need to do is I need to mark the center of this tube, because the tube on this end gets crushed this way, and on that end it gets crushed this way, and it's offset. So trying to line it up is becoming a real pain in the butt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a center line with a straight edge, mark it at the end here, mark it at the end here, and then I can see how far I need to be so that I know that this bar is parallel with the front of my car. So yeah, let's go get a long ruler and mark that out. Well, that's kind of where it sits. Just bring it around the back here so you can see that the passenger side has a little bit less, leg room there. I still would like to shift the center console over as much as possible. So it might only be a couple inches, right? But I'll lose this the start button and the key piece here when I shift this over, so that the edge of this is right up tight against this. That's all the space that I'm going to be able to gain there. But that's okay, because what I'll do is the key, you actually push the key. It's a fob that you put in. I can relocate that down onto the thing here, onto the tunnel, the center console, and the same with the push button. Those can be easily relocated. What I need to do now is I need to grab that heater unit and see how that sort of fits up underneath all of this, and whether or not we're gonna do something with that. But either way, the dash mounts to the heater unit mounts to the bracketry here, so it's all interconnected. But that metal bar is where it needs to be, which kind of gives me, what's nice about this is with this extra gap here, at least now when I put in my roll cage in here, right, I'm hitting this bar, which is perfect. I'm tied up against this inside piece here, which is perfect, and I'm not interfering with this. So, oh shoot, I'm happy about that. So before I destroy anything else, I'm going to go grab that heater unit, and let's just manhandle it up into place and see how it looks. Well, that was about a half a day worth of messing around with this thing to get it in place. So I had a lot of vice grips holding it just in place. I don't want anyone to breathe on this because it's going to move. Now, I am 3 inches off center. It brings my, as you can see, the steering arm in line with where the steering used to be. Now, it's sitting on a little bit of an angle this way. I think what I can do is I can move it maybe an inch. I've got an inch here worth of space. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to shift the whole thing by 1 inch this way and see where that puts me for my steering. Now, I'm going to have to cut into this part of the firewall here so that I've got the room. But at that point, once I've moved it, I'm going to mount it much better in such a way that I can put the seat in or put a seat in and mount the steering column into it and just see what it's like to get in and out, because I might be still sitting in a position where even with the seat all the way back, that the dashboard and steering wheel is like just way too far forward. I think it's going to be about here, which is going to make it snug for getting in, but it's a small car. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be up to next. But as far as anything goes, that, heater unit goes in. It fits in. As you can see, I still have, the engine ends here. I still have a ton of room that if I really, really, really wanted to, I could move that heater unit without the support bar forward. I could bring it way, way, way forward just on its own, and build my own custom bracketry for it. And it doesn't really make any difference except that I would have to do some kind of custom vent that brings the air to the front. Now, I would end up losing this fresh air vent here, which is fine. It's kind of cool looking. But if I have to, weld it shut, I'll leave it so that it looks like the part, looks the business, but just doesn't function. It'll be completely sealed. Yeah, so one of the bigger issues is this here. These vents here are actually for the defrost. They would end up, if I move them way forward, they're going to end up in the engine compartment, right? So I would end up just blocking them off because I'd have zero use for them. I got zero use for them anyways. It's a convertible. I'm only going to drive it in the summer on sunny days. I'm not even putting a top on this thing. So the likelihood of my windshield getting fogged up is going to be pretty limited. I really, really just want the ability to blow hot, warm air onto my feet so it blows up into onto my chest, and have the ability to blow hot air through this. Okay. I may even go so far as to customize those seats, like you see, they got that warm air that blows in your back. The seats are heated. So even if I was to drive this thing on a summer day and it gets cool in the evening, I don't care. I'm going to be okay, So anyways, let's keep messing around with this and see where we're at. Well, it's another day, and I've had some time to sort of sleep on it, so to speak, and take a look. And I was chatting with my wife, and she said, "Hey, what about windshield wipers?" I said, "Well, as much as I'll never drive this car in the rain, technically I need windshield wipers on it." So this is the BMW wiper unit itself. It's a nice, fairly compact unit that, it basically is held on with two bolts, which is beautiful. It's a little wide. It's quite a bit wider than the original, which is okay. I don't know whether I may need to actually shorten it in order to bring it closer together, and that sort of thing. There might be some serious customization, but what I'm looking at is, how am I going to get more space inside if I want it by moving the heater unit forward without getting in the way of being able to actually mount this close enough to the windshield at the right angle, because it's basically got to sit at, this sort of an angle like that, right? So, by the time I do that, I'm sort of, tucking in around here, right? And it's hard to see, but there is not a lot of room for me to move that unit forward. I have this is the original, this is the original firewall, or part of the original firewall that I cut away from the BMW, and it sits kind of in this space right here. This is the original, one of the original mounts for this, right? Like, sits kind of, does it sit this way, or does it sit the other way? Oh, does it sit this way? Oh, there we are. It sits upside down like that, actually. So part of the idea was to reuse this piece of it right here, because this is where the brake booster sits. This is the wiring loom, and this is where the steering comes through, and this is where the heating system comes through. So, my thought was, well, if I got to replace all this, is there a way for me to utilize that so that I know I can mount stuff? So yeah, I'm going to have to play with this a little bit more and make a decision as to, whether I can or I can't actually move that heating unit forward anymore. What's kind of interesting, though, is the intake, which is right over here for the heating unit. It's sitting in my engine bay, so I can box that off and actually put a filter in there. Like, yes, there's supposed to be there's going to be the electric unit, which is just wrapped up right now on top of the motor. I want to use the original box for that and mount it in here, so it's watertight and waterproof and in the same spot as it was in the BMW. But if there's any way that I can build a filter box, an air intake box for that doesn't involve using this original BMW filter, which may or may not be an option. I'd like to try and do that. So I think I'm going to do a whole bunch of thinking and measuring and maybe a bit more cutting, and when I've kind of figured something out, I'll get back and fill you in on where I'm at. Well, it's a new day, and I've had a chance to think about some of this. Now, I need windshield wipers, and that's the wiper motor out of the BMW, which I'd like to use because it works with the car. I do want to see about moving this forward, but I don't think it's going to move forward any more than it currently is. There's just no way to move the heater unit forward and still have room to put
this on unless I mount this to the actual bonnet so that it opens with the bonnet, as opposed to opening with or being on here. So that's not going to happen. So what I want to do now is I want to see about moving this way. But first I'm going to drop a seat into the car. I'm just going to, I'll grab the BMW seat here, or maybe I'll grab one of the original Triumph seats and drop that in, and see where the steering column sits and see if I can actually shift it to the left and not make it feel like I'm driving, a 1994 Jeep YJ or something. So let's get a seat, let's clean this up, let's get a seat in place, and let's see how that feels. So I've got the seat here, and of course the seat has this massive controller underneath it, but it really is just motor, and motor, when you put positive and negative to the inputs, will move. So we can bypass all of this by just running from a charger to a battery, so that the battery's got 12 volts, etc., to this unit. Now, you can't run direct from one of these units to this because these units have to sense a battery. Otherwise, they don't provide power properly. They don't read it. And the other thing with BMWs, you can't just pull the wire out of the motor and hook up to the motor. You actually have to connect up from the pin here. So let me set up the camera and I will show you what I'm up to. So I've got a negative and a positive, and the two heavier wires coming out of here are going to be the ones that move, that provide power to the motor. These are a sensor or a trigger. So what I'm going to do is I check the color of these, brown, blue, and white, and I trace them back to this connector. And if I find the brown and the blue and white, and I connect positive to the brown and negative to the blue, the motor moves and the seat goes up, so to speak. The motor turns it that way. If I flip these around, then the seat drops. Ha! That don't work. I do this. Can I push it in? No, of course not. I can pull it out, but I can't push it in. So, this is not a good driving position. This steering wheel needs to be like here, which means this has got to go forward. I don't have my tape measure. Okay, well, that doesn't work, say the least. And as you can see, the seat is really cockeyed, or it's a little bit cockeyed there because it's so tight here. Also, there's not a lot of room for moving back, for sure. My roll cage is going to be about here. It's going to come up about here somewhere. So, oops, there we go. So, I've still got some space to move the seat back, but that still really doesn't make up for the amount, the 6 inches I got to move this forward. Now, there's only so far I can move it forward because that bar, I can't, put it inside the engine compartment, right? So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to completely customize that cross member. I will take this off here because this is a good mount for the steering column. It only has 2 brackets that hold this in place, the heater unit. So what I'll probably end up doing is cutting this bar somewhere here and here, just on either side of this, which will give me a nice tube that I can then weld to, or at least know if I have to take some, roll cage tubing and make this part of my roll cage, which probably is what's going to happen. And then what I'll do is I'll weld this to it in the right position. So in order to do that and figure out where it's got to go, I got to cut away some more of this firewall here, which is what I was expecting anyways. I don't want to take too much of the structure away because, well, let's face it, I don't want the car to, be flimsy. So I'm going to have to give a little think. I don't think, I'm not too worried about it because I have these 2-inch by 3-inch 120 wall frame rails that the body is sitting on, right? So, I'm not worried about those twisting. Also, they are now bolted, it's bolted to this subframe here. So I'm not really concerned about it, the body really twisting. I'm not going to remove this top portion here. I'm absolutely not going to be removing any of this structure in here. I'm going to leave as much of this as possible, but the likelihood is that I'm going to end up custom bending a bar to replace that. I absolutely will try not to cut into this top piece that's here. I'll try and take it from below, and if I have to cut into that, it'll be very minimal. And I want to leave this transmission tunnel in place as much as possible. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm gonna have to cut away a bunch of this box section here so that the heater unit can move forward. I'm going to have to cut away this center section so the heater can move forward, and I'm going to have to cut away a bunch of this so that the steering column can move over and move forward. I'm also going to have to remove some of this down in here so that this can then line up properly with the new position of the steering column. So I have the body bolted, as you know, the body's bolted to the chassis. It's not going anywhere, and I've spot welded it. I've given it some tacks here so that it's not moving, as well as it's bolted through here across the front. At the back side, what I did was I put in this cross piece here, and I welded it right to the frame and pinned it tight up against the body, down and forward. So, this whole back section can't move, as well as I have it welded, cross-braced, and cross-braced here. So, and the doors, the door thing. So I am okay with cutting away a bunch of this firewall. So now that I've convinced myself, yeah, I got to make a big step here. So I'm going to go pull out the cutting disc, and I'm just going to cut away a big chunk of this, give myself a little extra room. I'm going to have to rebuild firewall anyways with fresh metal, so I might as well just get this apart and just go from that. So maybe what I'll end up doing is actually drilling out some of this so that I can leave this intact as much as possible instead of cutting it. But there are going to be a bunch of grinding, cutting, drilling, and other stuff. So let me get to that, and we'll go from there. All right, well, there's a big hole in the firewall now, which gives me lots and lots of room. And I test fit the heater unit into place, and, you know, it can go forward, which is great. But what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to take these vents that blow hot air up. They kind of open like this. And what I've done is I've cut off the front part of this vent because it just sticks out so much, right? So by doing that, it clearances me in here really much better. And I don't really need these vents. So what I decided I was going to do is I've taken the piece that is, you know, that's part of this part that's been cut off here, and I'm going to heat bend it so that this sponge lip fits in like that, and this flat part fits like that and covers the hole. That way I end up with just a thin opening here, which should allow me to make some kind of a duct that's very low profile to go under the dash and over this, and may allow me to vent some air into, you know, even if it's just a little tiny opening, through to the windshield. So that's kind of what I'm up to right now. So I'm just about to heat this up with a heat gun, and I should be able to bend it. It's a thermal form plastic, not a thermal set. So I should be able to bend it up just by heating it and then letting it cool down. So let's give that a try. Bunch of hours later, I took apart the heater unit and pulled out the condenser radiator. Well, one, I don't need it, and it's moldy, so I'm not having AC in this car. So no point in having it, and it was, you know, the hoses were just getting in my way for where I wanted to put the steering. Now I got this is pretty much is dead center now, and now that I have this piece here and I got rid of those hoses, this piece fits beautifully here, and you can see, if you can see where the white is, center line, and it lines up pretty damn good. And I am clear of where the original, those hoses were, which gives me the room that I need for my steering column. So now this obviously ruins my ability to use the other dashboard, as well as is going to make it interesting for getting the steering wheel. So next on the agenda here is going to be I need to somehow get this locked in place so that I can actually put the steering column in place and look at where my dashboard is going to go or how it's going to go. This is obviously now way tucked back, so there's going to be a lot of customizing of some kind of a dashboard that will be done covered in Alcantara or leather. So I'm not too worried about that. So I think that I need to figure out how I'm going to mount this. Now, it has a screw here that mounts to a flange. So what I'm going to probably do is I'll weld an L bracket onto there, which will definitely, hold this part in place. And then what I might do is I can screw into here and here with a tab bracket and just tack it onto there. So, once I get this parallel. It's sitting a little out, but I've got the room to move it so that it's parallel with the ground, which is what I want. We were able to get the vents cut down, and you can see there's room above them, which means that I should be able to pull some kind of custom hose to a vent. Now, where I'm kind of hooped is my windshield wipers, right? I may have to go back to the original ones because they were so low profile. Being those cable driven windshield wipers, I might have to go back to them. I'm going to take a look at what else I might be able to do with the BMW one. I may still be able to somehow get them to work, but I don't know if I'll hold my breath or not. But again, that is it's coming. But right now, I'm really pleased with that heater unit going into place, and yeah, we'll just keep working on that. So let's get that L bracket made up so I can bolt it into place, and we'll go from there. Well, I've been messing about for pretty much the whole day. I just pulled the hoses off of here, but that is now bracketed front and back, just temporarily, but it's good and solid. It's not going anywhere. I can take this out from underneath if I want. The other thing I did was I adjusted this so that it fits up under here like that, and gets me pretty close to where I want to be. Now I'm just trying to figure out how to mount this thing temporarily so that I can install the steering column and have just the ability to move it around until I get it into the perfect spot. So I think I've got it far enough forward now that the steering wheel isn't like stuck in my chest while I'm driving, but also not so far forward that I need to shorten my steering shaft. So it's kind of the right length, etc. So yeah, that's kind of where I got to today with this. So it's slowly coming along. So I think that is probably a good place to stop working on the car right now for this episode. I got to do some stuff now, think about where we're going forward, but thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and that notification bell up there. Just really glad you guys stuck around for this. I hope you're having fun with it, and if you get a chance, grab a Hornetic unit. See you next time.